Ciao, namaste, and ni hao. My name is Clayton James, and I'm a life coach with a specific focus on spirituality and healing through positive affirmations. And today I'd like to talk to you all about something that's very near and dear to my heart. Specifically, I want to give some empowerment to those in my queer community and really affirm that our sexuality is not only natural and normal and a vital part of this world, but it is also something very sacred and special. Just as all sexualities are sacred and special. The reason why I want to talk about this so much today is because I often see just in the world a lot of attacks on gay people, and specifically gay men and gay and bisexual men, for engaging in displays of their sexuality and being free and just, having sex in general is something that's really maligned. And I just think that's so unfair because it's just a natural reaction to imbalances that have been present throughout our world for so long in history, right? Coming from a Western standpoint and viewpoint of the world, for a long time, homosexuality is something that's been taboo. And so, as with anything that you have that's taboo, eventually it's like the scale. If the scale's balanced one way too much, it's going to come back and it's going to balance in the other direction. And so what we're seeing now is, I guess someone would say, an over-sexualization, over-idealization of gay sex within the community, but I don't really think that it's over. I think it's just kind of a natural response and making up for lost times for years of being forced to hide. And so I just don't really think it's fair that people always try to malign gay people and say that, oh, they're all really sexual and they only talk about their sex and sexuality. Well, you would too if you had to constantly hide that. And it's also very natural too, because I think we see in society, all of the society is very sex positive at the moment. I think that comes from thousands and thousands of years of people basically not being able to explore and express their sexuality in Western culture, which due to colonization has become sort of the dominant overarching culture in many places in the world. And so we have a lot of songs, a lot of music, a lot of movies. Sex is portrayed as something, very normal. And sometimes it can be to a heightened degree, but of course it's going to come after years of, as I've said, repression. So it always comes out eventually. So you can try to repress something, but it's always going to come out. And so the key to life is balance. You have to have a healthy balance. And I think part of this video is trying to get an understanding of what would be the best ways, I guess, to sort of balance our sexuality within our communities. Because I feel like we, as children, were never really taught to respect our sex and our sexuality. It was just something kind of swept under the rug and kind of hushed about and not really talked about. And I don't think we were really taught to honor our sexuality, right? And taught that our bodies, as queer bodies, are something sacred and to be. Again, my desire with this video is for us as queer people to take a moment and journey back to our inner child and our inner pubescent self at that stage where we were still developing our consciousness of who we were becoming in relation to sex, our sexuality, and the world around us, and reaffirm and reclaim not only our physical, but our spiritual worthiness on a soul level that lies deep within us as sexual beings and as queer sexual beings especially. For many of us, we have done so, but as adults and in combative forms of fighting against the dominant narrative in our society. We still have to acknowledge that gay child inside of us who wants to be told they are normal and a natural part of this world in a nurturing way that reaffirms their value and worth through understanding and compassion instead of through the lens of combat and counterattack that we were forced into by anti-gay agendas and narratives. When I talk to individuals in our community, and men especially, about our first times, so often the story involves a hookup with someone they barely knew when they were a teenager, either through Grindr or outside a bar or club. Our introductions to sex as queer youth can be fraught with danger and often very adult situations that are precarious for vulnerable young people to navigate. For so many of us growing up, we are like hatchling sea turtles, coming to the sexual world alone and struggling to make it to safer waters, and often doing so seemingly by chance when so many of us are unable to make that perilous journey. Along the way, many of us are picked off and preyed upon by dangers that our society fails to prepare us for or protect us from. From bullying to repression of knowledge about queer people and queer sex, we are let down by our society, our education system, and sometimes even our own guardians, who are all just as responsible for nurturing queer young adults and their burgeoning sexuality with the same care and attentiveness that they do for the straight youth. Instead, because we as queer people are not using our bodies or sexuality to reinforce heterosexual mainstream society or for explicitly reproductive purposes, we have been taught through exclusion that our bodies and our sex are inherently less valuable, and I believe this has had long-lasting implications for how we as queer people see not only our bodies, but other queer bodies as well, and the sex that we have with each other as commodities and things to be used up or tried out, instead of as deeply sacred vessels of art that express a unique and special love. The same love that all other beings feel, but in an expression that is uniquely beautiful. Like a rainbow, love cannot be viewed as just one color, and the addition of many different colors is what makes the queer community and queer love so remarkable. Ultimately, what I believe it all comes down to for us as individuals and as a community in relation to sex is balance. Just like with what you eat. I don't know too many queer people who would eat at a restaurant with a B rating. Similarly, you just can't allow people access to your body just because they may look good or appear desirable on the outside. Sex is an exchange of energy just as much as it is fluids, and what you're giving is valuable, and what you're getting back may be equivalent to what that restaurant with the B rating was serving. And no, this isn't about shaming or technique. Just that along with possible pleasure, what a partner has to give you may be negative energy or karma that disrupts your day, week, or even your life for a period of time. Thus, you have every right, and in fact it is essential, to often be picky about who you're engaging with, and again, it has nothing to do with feeling shame or negativity. Rather, it is a form of self-love and protection to look at who you are around in social circles and in the bedroom. In everything you do, you want to hold yourself and what you're consuming to a high standard. If you don't, that's fine, but you may open yourself up to some unfortunate consequences over time. Of course, it's all a part of life to have a little fun now and then, but even so, we want to be as safe as possible while looking out for any red flags. There's only one you, and no one's going to love you as well as you do. So first I want to talk about homosexuality and sexuality in general as a spiritual construct, as a spiritual manifestation of ourself and our energy, right? So this world that we live in, this 3D physical world, it isn't the first world, obviously, that we know as souls, as beings of spirit. You probably heard the saying, as above, so below. And so what that means is that just as everything you see around here kind of works, you see trees and plants and mountains and things like that. Well, it's kind of a copy of the spiritual world that we all come from, right? But the spiritual world is more perfect, more in order, more in balance. But in this 3D physical world, it's not quite like that. We have to sort of put certain things in balance and perspective for ourselves. We have that room to kind of play around. And the whole purpose of it all is to learn lessons, to evolve, to grow in ways that we couldn't in a world that's already perfect, right? In the spiritual world, you can't really have consequences the way you can here on earth. And you can have, I guess, a death of certain experiences like you can here, where it's life and death and your decisions really matter and, you're mortal. So everything really has an importance to it, every decision and act that you make. And sometimes that's really beautiful. And so going off of that, in this 3D physical world, we want to have a range of experiences. And it takes a long time to have those experiences and to have those lessons and to learn them, more than one lifetime. You can't really learn everything that you're supposed to learn in one go around. Especially, you imagine someone who's passed away at a very young age. What have they been able to really learn and accumulate and take from this world? Not a whole lot. So that's why in spirituality, you have to kind of go through various cycles here on earth to learn about not only yourself, but about the choices that you need to make and the things that you need to do in order to progress and, become closer and closer I don't want to say to a perfect being, but I guess to your best self, you can kind of think, but we're always changing and evolving. And so it's something that kind of never ends, but there's more on that later. And so if you think about the different lives that you have here on this planet, you come into this world, as a boy, as a girl, gay, straight, black, white, so many different things and so many different perspectives. And so homosexuality is just one of those different types of perspectives that you can have while you're having this experience. And it's a beautiful perspective to have because there's so many things that you can do in this lifetime this way that maybe you couldn't in another lifetime in a different way. So, imagine you're a woman and you meet a man, you fall in love, okay, now you're having kids, but you're very passionate. And let's say this is like sometime during I don't know, during Jesus' era, right? And you're having lots of kids, but you're very passionate and maybe you're really good at writing. If you've been fortunate enough to learn writing, that's another aspect of our different experiences, what we're also given because of our gender and sexuality and race and culture and all that. But imagine that you're very good at writing and there's no contraceptives really at the time. So basically, you keep having children. Well, a lot of your time and effort is going to go into that. And, same thing kind of for your partner, he's able to go out and make a living, but a lot of his finances are going to go towards maintaining his family and feeding his children and supporting his family. And so both he and you might not be able to pursue all the things that maybe you could have pursued had you not had a large family and could you not kept on producing, even though that's very important. But, as a society, as humans, there are also a lot of things beyond just having children that are very important to us as human beings, as a human culture. We have art, we have music, language, history. We're constantly inventing and exploring new things. And, we're writing plays. And there's just so much that goes into human society, human culture, beyond just, having babies. Imagine if that was the only thing we did. We wouldn't really be who we are. So you can obviously, have children and do all those things. But there are also times where having a family is going to also limit a little bit what you're able to do, especially in times, that aren't advanced as the times that we live in right now currently. And so I think that's also where queer people come into play. Anyone who's known a lot of gay people, specifically gay men, I will say have this certain, I don't want to say stereotype, but are kind of known for being very artsy. Oh gosh. And just good at a lot of expressive things like writing and poetry and dance and theater, things like that. And so those are very important things that actually help advance culture, right? And so I know it's looked at differently in the way that you might think of as like mathematics or something like that, but these are very important things that help advance the culture because we're communicating with each other, we're learning, we're taking information in a very important way. And I think we're also becoming more civilized through those expressions, right? And that's very important. And so we're able to have some really brilliant minds do a lot of brilliant things. If you're thinking from like a purely scientific or, biological, progression of the species kind of mind frame. I'm not saying that if you have kids that you can't do these things, obviously, but I think it is beneficial. I think they say 1 in every 10 people is queer or gay or something like that. And so, that 1 in 10, we're at the top of the food chain. So we're already a very advanced species already. We can spare like 1 in 10 to go out and, not necessarily have kids, but to do other things and explore other avenues of the human experience that's going to be really helpful and positive and benefit all of us. And not only that, think of like animals like wolves and meerkats, in those groups, there's usually one pair that breeds and then the rest of the family takes care of all the offspring from that one pair. And it's actually really beneficial because it ensures, with this one stable group that, everyone's putting in, there's not a bunch of mouths to feed. Imagine in wolves, in wolves' case, they're all related, right? They're all the previous litter from like a year or so ago that helps raise the new litter. And then eventually they'll grow up and they'll have their own cubs. But for a while they stay together and they're really, they're really raking it in. They're hunting, they're feeding each other, and they're making bonds with each other. it's a very stable way to raise a family. And so applying that to us as human beings, think of how beneficial it is, to have an aunt or an uncle who can help you with your kids and who's not focused on having kids of their own. And so all those resources that could have potentially gone towards 2 or 3 other mouths to feed are now going to your kids. So it ensures the survival of your genetics by having someone else help you with your kids. And I see all the time, hashtag gay uncles, they go and they take the kids out. And obviously it's not as necessary now, but, back in the day, I'm sure a few thousand years ago, having a gay uncle could potentially be a lifesaver. Imagine if something happens to you and you need someone to take in your kids. Well, you have someone there who can help you provide, or something that happens to your, God forbid, your spouse. Well, now you have another male, another female who can help you rear your children. So that's actually a big, big bonus. And so it always baffles me, when scientists are saying, oh, I can't figure out the reason of why homosexuality is. Well, obviously, we see that in some cases it is genetic, right? And so there's a reason why it keeps on appearing in us. It's beneficial in some way. And just because you can't see it, just because I hate it, because these, I don't say I hate it, but it's just so unfortunate because these scientists, they can only see things if it leads directly to producing more offspring, but they don't always try to correlate. But there are some who do, and shout out to them. And so moving on, those are some ways in which homosexuality plays a very important part in sort of the natural sphere of the world. So those are some things that I want to talk to you about. This is my first video that I've done on any topic, but I'm looking forward to having more in the future. And if you guys have any questions, you can please let me know in the comment section. And I'm so looking forward to hearing from you guys and answering questions that you may have and engaging with you all. So thank you so much for watching and listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.